Hey, this is the Daily Overpass. My name is Eric and I make apps. Now today I want to talk about my main motivations for being an app developer. Okay, I want to answer a question that Nicolai Weitkemper asked me last week, which was, what is your most important motivation for being an app developer? And I thought, this is a nice softball question. You could just answer this right away. And then I started thinking about it. And I think the biggest motivation that I have is freedom, right? It's, for me, I was a developer. Well, I mean, when I came to the UK, I wasn't a developer, and one day I'll tell you how I actually got into IT. My degree is actually in history, so I was a history teacher, or substitute history teacher. But so when I got into IT, I was working at investment banks and permanent jobs and all that kind of stuff as a developer, and kind of working my way up there in the knowledge and all that kind of stuff. And getting on a train, going into a city, dressing up, sitting at a desk, 8 to 10 hours a day, then coming home, getting home late at night, and that kind of stuff. And it wasn't bad. It was better than being unemployed, and the money was good. And after a while, I started getting paid a lot. But eventually, I wanted to branch out on my own. So I became a contractor, which was just like a little step above branching out on your own. So I had my own company, but I would take on contracts. So I'd have a contract for usually it would be about 6 months, but then I'd get extended, and I'd be at places for years, and I'd be just and the money was really good, especially working in London in investment banks. I don't know if that's going to be the way forward anymore after Brexit and all that kind of stuff, but at the time it was really good money, but it was still that lack of freedom. There was still that you have to be at a certain place at a certain time, get dressed up. So basically wake up in the morning, so what I would do is I'd get up, I'd work on the computer on some of my own stuff. Then I would get dressed, put on a suit, depending on where I was contracting at the time, and get on a train or drive, for at least a couple of hours, for at least 1 hour, usually a couple hours, and then sit at a desk in an office, and at a computer that was, nowhere near as good as the one I had at home, at a chair that was not as comfortable as the one I had at home, and sitting someplace where basically they just want to see you sit down and code. It was that you're not really judged by what you produce. You're judged based on the hours that you put in or that stuff. And I was really good at being a contractor. I was good at being an employee. I'm sad to say that I'm really good at being a follower. I'm really good at just being a team player and just fitting in and all that kind of stuff. So so I would go from job to job, and usually what would happen is after a couple of years, well, actually, no, after a few months, I'd get bored. Sometimes it'd be someplace for just a few months. Sometimes it might be a couple of years, but usually never longer than 2 years, and I would just move on just because I was bored. And I was still thinking about Overpass and getting things started, and I wanted to do like outsourcing type stuff, but it was still that getting started. And I started so many projects on my own, and that I just sort of shelved, and then I would go work a contract someplace. And it was just something that at the core of my being, I mean, I have a family, I have a mortgage, I have all the things that you have to have. So you need money, so you need to go off to work and and work hard and all that kind of stuff. But after a while, you start to think, is this what life's all about? I mean, even if you just worked 40 hours a week, is that really right to work 40 hours out of the week just to survive? And I just didn't like that. And of course, you're working for people or companies who a lot of the companies are B2B, so they're working for other companies, but somewhere down the road, somebody's paying. Somewhere down the road, this chain, there's like a customer someplace. So somebody has to actually sell something to somebody. And when I got into apps, or when I did the first app, that was my first time where I've actually had something that was a B2C type of thing. So that's interesting to me. And there was a while where I was working a contract where I was working on a system that had about 100 users, but I had EarSpy that was getting thousands each day, and things were coming in, and it was just, but I still wasn't making the money on it. And it was like I was making still like £30 a day, and it was not something you can live off of. And everybody was kind of like, oh, no, it's really cute. No, it's nice. It's, it's spare money. It's, it's cute that you're doing that. And, but your ambitions are so much higher. So thinking, there's other people are able to make it work, and I want to be able to make it work. And I want to be able to have a life where I don't have to be someplace at a certain time, or to have a little bit of control over things. I mean, I can remember sitting on a train coming home from London, I don't know, 10 years ago. I was working, my first contract, and I was just sitting on a train on the way home, and I could hear this businessman. It was like I had to come home early for one of my kids' things at school or something, and there was a guy at some businessman, older businessman with his mobile phone talking too loud on another chair, and he's talking about, oh yes, we need this resource and that resource and this resource and that resource, and I thought, God, that's all I am. So I'm just a resource, right? And at another time, I was working in another contract where I was between two teams. So like I was seconded out to another team, and I was working with one manager that I had, and the other manager came over and he was asking me questions, and he was like, "Hey, don't let him talk to you. You're my resource. You're not his resource, right?" And I thought, God, you know what? He didn't even think that would be offensive. I'm not a resource. I'm a person. I'm like, and when you start thinking about it, a lot of the times I would get really jaded. I would be like, as a software developer, if you're a really good one, or if aspiring to be a good one, you spend a lot of time learning, right? You spend a lot of time in the books. You spend a lot of time in front of that computer, tinkering with things, finding out how things work, dealing with problems that come up that nobody, and just getting down to that low level where you're in the zone and just finding how things work, and the frustrations and the hardships and all that kind of stuff. And in the end, you come out a better developer, right? But in the end, what are you? You're a resource. So I really went on too long about this. This was going to be an easy answer, softball answer. So I'll just finish it off there. One of these days, we'll explore this a little bit more. There's so many instances in the past where I thought, my goal in life is not to be a resource. And we do client work and we do our own work. The own work is far more rewarding. That is the biggest thing. That is my biggest motivation, right? And this is, some of you may think, of doing too many apps, too many things like this, and it's not maintainable. But I love doing it, and every time we do it better, right? And every penny that I make from one of our apps through this passive income, because somebody's downloaded and used our apps, is so much sweeter than the one I make for punching a clock someplace. So anyway, I hope that answers it a little bit. I didn't mean to ramble on so much about that. I know it gets boring, when somebody just has to go on this. But I think the biggest thing about being a developer who works for yourself, an indie developer, or somebody who just does something in a creative capacity, is the freedom that it gives you. And but that freedom also comes with a lot of risk, and sometimes a lot of hardship, and sometimes a lot of climbing uphill, and sometimes it feels like you're climbing a greased pole, and and just when you think you're about to get there, then you slip down a few notches, and some months you're thinking, hey, this is working out, and some months you're thinking, God, how am I going to make it through this month? But that's part of the freedom. You're operating without a net, and that's the bit I like the most about this. So that's my motivation. And I'll talk to you more about this probably in the future. But anyway, that's it for today. Didn't mean to get so introspective there. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.